You're listening to Beyond the Couch podcast with Dr. Sally Nazari, where we look at you beyond the couch and build ways to enrich your life, share your triumphs, achieve your goals, and most importantly, where we'll be celebrating you. Let's get started. Hello everyone, and welcome to Beyond the Couch, episode 13. I'm your host, licensed psychologist and Reiki master teacher, Dr. Sally Nazari, and I'm very excited today to continue our Looking at Trauma mini-series. We've been taking a closer look at the impact of post-traumatic stress disorder, or PTSD. We've discussed an overview of what happens in PTSD and explored in more depth how people with PTSD are impacted by the re-experiencing cluster of PTSD symptoms. We've also explored more thoroughly what the hyperarousal set of challenges we see in PTSD bring on for people. Today, we're going to look at the third symptom cluster, avoidance. We've mentioned briefly that the hyperarousal and re-experiencing clusters of PTSD contribute to the avoidance cluster of PTSD. Unfortunately, the term avoidance is often mistaken to mean a deliberate avoidance, but this is simply not the case with PTSD at all. In fact, if we consider how overwhelming and terrifying it can be to feel like the scariest experience of our lives, or the event that left us feeling the most helpless, powerless, or overwhelmed is repeatedly happening again and again, and that we're both emotionally and physiologically reactive to it each time it seems like it's recurring, it makes sense that we would have a natural tendency to just pull away from any connection to it. As part of our protective mechanisms, human beings have a tendency to withdraw from pain. Think about it. If something strikes your body, you tend to pull away. Or if we touch something that hurts us, we automatically pull our body away. We don't think about whether we need to withdraw from whatever hurt us. We just instinctively pull away, then try and assess what brought on that pain. Or we just move away from it altogether. It's the same for us with psychological pain. With PTSD, since our experience is that this terrifying, disruptive event is truly a danger to us in the here and now, our natural mechanisms to pull away and move away kick in automatically. The difference is that these look different when they're psychologically based. We see this type of avoidance of pain in behaviors and actions, or what we do and don't do, as well as in emotional and cognitive ways. The trouble is that natural avoidance can get in the way of both recovering from trauma-related issues and living our lives. Let's begin by taking a closer look at how avoidance tends to show up. Avoidance symptoms represent an effort to withdraw from certain situations that bring about body-level distress of trauma-related symptoms. We can also view these symptoms as the activities that people engage in to limit other types of distressing experiences. For example, use of substances can be an activity people engage in order to self-medicate from the anxious feelings. Avoidance behaviors occur in an attempt to avoid distressing memories, thoughts, or feelings about or closely associated with the traumatic event, or external reminders such as people, places, conversations, activities, objects, and situations that arouse distressing memories, thoughts, or feelings about or that are closely related with the traumatic events. Let's also keep in mind that these external reminders can include sounds, smells, physical symbols, exposure to people, places, or things connected to the traumatic event, or some of the intrusive thoughts and memories of the re-experiencing symptoms we've discussed in the re-experiencing episode, and the experiences of hyperarousal we addressed in our hyperarousal episode. Emotional avoidance is when a person avoids feelings about a traumatic event. Cognitive avoidance speaks to when a person avoids thoughts related to the traumatic event. For example, a rape survivor may try to force herself to think about other things whenever thoughts about the rape arise, or she may stop herself every time she begins to feel sadness about the rape, or focus on something else that makes her feel less sad. She may say things to herself like, "Don't go there," or "Don't think about it." Avoiding reminders of a trauma is called behavioral avoidance. For example, a combat veteran may stop watching the news or reading the newspaper because of coverage of the war. Someone who lived in Manhattan might move out of the city after the 9/11 attacks, or assault survivors might go out of their way to stay away from the scene of the attack. Avoidance behaviors can be both helpful and unhelpful. For instance, sometimes it's good to avoid movies that you know will upset you. However, avoidance can also cause impairment or problems in life. For example, consider someone who got into a car accident and is now afraid of getting back into a car. What if they have to drive to go to work every day without alternative transportation such as bus or train? Avoiding a car has now caused impairment and created more problems in their life. There are many ways that we can have blind spots to the ways we're attempting to avoid things. This makes it all the more difficult during a healing process. Working with a professional can help us recognize our patterns of avoidance. Let's look at some other ways that avoidance as part of PTSD may show up. Some of these include efforts to avoid thoughts, feelings, or conversations associated with the trauma, efforts to avoid activities, places, or people that arouse recollections of the trauma, a difficult time remembering an important aspect or all of the trauma, a noticeably diminished interest or participation in activities that were previously important or enjoyable, feelings of detachment or estrangement from others, feelings of numbness or trouble accessing a full range of feelings, feeling like aspects of life that others are participating in are inaccessible to us, such as never having a career or being able to get married and raise a family. We can often also see use of alcohol and drugs increase, or engagement in problematic behaviors like gambling, compulsive sex, or pornography use, or eating or self-injurious behaviors as a way to avoid the difficult thoughts and feelings that naturally follow a traumatic event, or as part of the progression of PTSD symptoms. Again, it's important to remember not all avoidance is bad. It can be helpful to learn ways to focus your thoughts and feelings on things that are not related to the trauma. Distraction is a useful skill that can help you to get on with your daily life after a trauma. It can allow you to go to school or work or buy groceries even in the face of difficult life events. Although distraction and avoidance can be helpful in the short term, they shouldn't be your primary way of coping. Growing up, many of us have heard advice like, just try not to think about it, or don't dwell on it. But if you avoid thoughts and feelings of the trauma all of the time, your symptoms may get worse. Using avoidance as your main way of coping can make it harder to move on with your life. You might be afraid that if you let yourself feel difficult emotions, they might overwhelm you. You may be afraid that if you start crying, you'll cry forever. Or you may worry that if you experience the anger inside you, you might lose control. Therapy can help you learn to deal with your thoughts and feelings about the trauma instead of being afraid of them, which can only get in the way. As we've discussed before, it's important to address PTSD with a specialized professional, such as a trauma therapist or psychiatrist. I'll explore some therapy strategies for PTSD in an upcoming episode. For now, I will mention that several therapy modalities have shown scientific data indicative of notable relief in PTSD. One gold standard treatment is cognitive processing therapy, or CPT for PTSD, which is a short-term 12-session treatment that helps people not only build the tools for overcoming the difficulties we see in PTSD, but to also continue shifting the thoughts regarding the danger, their sense of self, and understandings about others and the world that follow a traumatic experience. You can read a bit more about my CPT group individual services on my website linked in the show notes. We've spent some time today reviewing how our body and mind continue to detect danger following a traumatic experience and leave us feeling these false danger alert signals even in the absence of a present-day threat. We also looked at a few ways to begin combating the experiences of emotional, behavioral, and cognitive avoidance. Remember, you can access a Countdown Coping mini ebook through the show notes to help through this process. In the next discussion of our Looking at Trauma series, we will look at how our mindset shifts following the issues we see in hyperarousal, re-experiencing, and avoidance symptoms of PTSD. We'll also keep moving forward in our Mindful Monday mini-series as well. I'll look forward to sharing that with you. For now, take care.
Thanks for listening to Beyond the Couch Podcast, a space for celebrating you. The contents of this episode are for informational and supplemental purposes only, and not a substitute for professional services. For more access to You Beyond the Couch, check out www.drsallynazari.com.